Good evening to everybody and hello to everybody again. Know your stars. I don't think it says in my stars that I'm going to have a hard time starting this tonight, or maybe it does in some wayward transit that's happening. But every soul is called into existence to fill a definite cosmic need. I know this at my core. I believe this. The ancient history teaches it. It's the thing that keeps us wondering day after day. And have you ever wondered, what's it all about? Why am I here? Tonight's presentation is designed as a beginners to astrology for a very real reason. I believe that within your birth chart is all the information a person needs to know to understand their personality, to understand why they deal with the things that they deal with in this lifetime as opposed to somebody else. Why me? Why am I here? What does it all mean? Does it even matter? Is what I seek to do with evolutionary astrology. That is, answer those questions. Today, we're going to talk about dowsing and how dowsing, we use pendulums, we're dowsers. We use pendulums to get answers to questions. And we can use astrology to help us hone in on the questions that we need to ask. So this is a labyrinth of life, and some days are better than others, right, folks? So our itinerary for this evening is to talk about dowsing and astrology, the history of astrology, and to some degree, the history of dowsing. We'll spend a lot of time in astrology as a primer. Some of you have had sessions with astrologers. Some of you have looked at your birth chart. Some of you have not. So I have a wide range of knowledge here, but I'm going to approach it as a beginner astrologer. My goal here is that you'll learn tonight what you need to know so that when you meet with an astrologer, you understand enough of the language that you can get much more out of that astrology consultation than you would have otherwise. I'm looking to take the mystique out of astrology for you so that I can get you closer to really knowing your stars and knowing yourself. So Astrology Primer, a good amount of time there. And then I'm going to talk about evolutionary astrology. There are many branches of astrology, and evolutionary astrology is soul-focused astrology. I'll explain a lot of how that works and why it's my passion. You know, we can have astrology where we can learn, well, I happen to have a sun in Leo, and that's true. That is my sun sign. So I enjoy certain things based on that. That's character-based astrology. But when we take a look at evolutionary astrology, we look at answering the question, which is, why do I have the chart I have? And that's what evolutionary astrology allows us to do. We're going to talk about soul purpose, predestiny, free will is real. You do get to make your choices, and there's no astrology that should tell you otherwise. You do make choices in life. What the astrology can tell you is what the weather conditions will be at any particular time in your life that you might be looking to make a choice. We're going to talk about why I believe everyone should know their stars. And I'm passionate about bringing astrology into schools. I believe that children should know what their stars are to a level of their education enough to understand how uniquely made they are and how purposely made they are. And then we'll come into a discussion point. So with dowsing, I use dowsing to answer questions about life's choices. So pendulum dowsing provides the quick daily guidance that allows us to reveal current energies and subconscious preferences, right? It's working with the subconscious. And it helps us validate our intuition and clarify decisions that we're looking to make. Days I struggle with dowsing because I'm wondering if I'm really forcing the answer, right? I'm sure that that's common with a lot of you. Astrology complements dowsing by offering a broader soul level perspective. So evolutionary astrology reveals the soul's purpose and the karmic patterns that you can then use for deeper guidance. It does illuminate growth opportunities in the life, and it connects the past and the present and the future, and it empowers the individual to make heart-centered choices. Astrology, as I said a little bit ago, it cannot predict your future, but it can show where and how a problem is operative in the psyche. And so with astrology and dowsing, we have a unified path. Astrology maps the cosmic flow through us. Dowsing locates earth energy flowing around us. And together they create a complete picture of our energetic reality. History of astrology. Some of the greatest minds in all time were astrologers. We see them named up at the top. The greatest minds, and some were sent to prison and killed for it, but the greatest minds. I looked for the history of dowsing, and I was able to go back as far as 2205 BCE in China. There was an emperor, Tai Yu, who brought in dowsing to control floods and was able to change the world in China at that particular period of time with dowsing. Not sure if folks were aware of that. And so astrology can be traced all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, 6000 BCE. It was integral to the life of man. It was a spiritual study. Coming forward in history, by 331 BCE, Alexander the Great's conquests proliferated astrology throughout the world. And in 777 AD in Baghdad, there was a school of astronomy and astrology. In the ancient times, astronomy and astrology were both sciences and they were taught together. Moving forward, enter the church, the Roman Catholic Empire, and a particular emperor, which banned astrology. That was a period of time where astrology started to see its demise. However, through the Middle Ages, it held, and it returned to universities in France and Italy. It was reestablished in the Renaissance. And at that point in time, only kings and queens and princes, etc., would have access to an astrologer. The astrologers were priests at the time. So it's amazing that today, now, we all have access to astrology, which is a wonderful thing. It wasn't always that way. Astrology really went underground in the 15th century when Copernicus proved that the Earth circled the sun. And that changed everything. It changed the biblical teachings that, the Earth was the center of the universe. And science came up at that time as well with Descartes and the, separateness of the soul from the physical body. And between both of those activities taking place, astrology was really driven underground. And it fairly stayed there until the 1900s. And a lot of you, we all know of Carl Jung and his archetypes of the soul, symbology that came forward, which really started to bring astrology back out into the open. In 1968, which really was the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and this very famous song from that time by the Fifth Dimension, it is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Well, I'm here to say we are in the age of Aquarius now. And there was a bestseller book at that time. It happened to be my very first astrology book by Linda Goodman, and that ignited a new age movement in astrology. And what's so beautiful about the song, The Age of Aquarius, is actually says, peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. Wouldn't that be wonderful, right? Wouldn't it be? Today, contemporary astrology, evolutionary astrology comes forward. Really, evolutionary astrology had its seeds in humanistic psychology. So this was around the 1950s, 60s, back to the 40s, and has come forward from all those years. Humanistic psychology has become evolutionary astrology. They are merging. It's the tenets of it, and a lot of Jungian activity going on here with evolutionary astrology. Today, 2025 polls by Gallup showed that 30% of US adults believe in astrology, but within the Gen Z generation, we're up as high as 70%. So astrology is starting to proliferate and be used more and more. The birth chart doesn't guarantee any particular outcome. It does not. But what it does do is represent a spectrum of possibility. So when you know your birth chart, you understand what these possibilities are for you at any given point in your lifetime. Here we come into what is astrology and how does it work. We're looking at the birth chart of Walt Disney, Magic Kingdom. And just a side note, horoscope, the term horoscope derives from the keeper of the hour. Is in ancient is where it comes from. So I'm going to explain this wheel. It's a circle. It's 360 degrees. It is a cosmic snapshot of the sky at the moment of your birth, the location, the time. No two birth charts will ever be the same, ever. Even twins born 5 minutes apart, 2 minutes apart, can have key changes in their birth chart. So we are all absolutely unique. Again, why I believe children should know what their stars are. There are 12 rooms, what we call houses. So when you understand astrology, we take a look at the 1 through the 12, 1 through 12 in the middle of the circle where hopefully my cursor is going around. These are what we call the houses, and people get confused with the houses. They are the areas of life. These are the arenas of life where your life story unfolds. It is the only thing in the birth chart that will never move. One will always be where one is, and it will always mean what one is meant to mean, and that's coming up. The zodiac signs, the glyphs, Glyphs is the terminology for the zodiac signs. The zodiac signs do move. What sits here, I'll back up a moment to talk about houses. See these skinny lines that separate the houses? They are the cusps of the houses, CUSP, cusp of the house. And they introduce the sign, the zodiacal sign of the house. And the zodiac sign that sits on the cusp of a house, it tells us all, it tells the world, it's portrayed in the world what your unique style and vibe is in that particular arena of your life. The ascendant is a very important part of astrology, and it sits right here at the cusp of the first house. When I have a client that does not know their exact time of birth, it poses a challenge. And one of the things I do is I work with my clients to really dig through the records, the birth record out in the States to see if we can get in on that time, because it establishes the time of birth, establishes the ascendant, what is called the rising sign. Now, this glyph here on the first house for Walt Disney is the sign of Virgo. So he was born with a Virgo rising. Virgo, naturally, in the view of all of the astrology signs, they always follow order. And Virgo will always be followed by Libra, will always be followed by Scorpio and Sagittarius. And we go around the wheel to all of the zodiac signs, which is why the ascendant really is the chart's front door. And it is the first impression that we all make in the world. So it's how it's the stained glass window through which we shine. It's how the world sees us. So Walt Disney was very much seen as a hardworking perfectionist, and that would bring us that very analytical as well, sign of Virgo. And the planets. So the planets are the energetic players. They are the actors on the stage of your life. And we see the various planets. So for example, over here in the fifth house, I see the planet Venus. Venus is in his fifth house at birth, and it's in the sign of Capricorn. So what an astrologer does is an astrologer's role is to integrate all of these bits and parts and understand how they work together. It is the house, it is the astrological sign, and it is the planet. Now, some folks are born with a birth chart where houses don't have planets at birth. That does not mean that that house does not play out, and you'll understand about that a little bit further on down the line. So that's the view of the horoscope itself. And your birth chart, as I said, is one of a kind. Let's take a look at Oprah Winfrey, and I love to put up examples of birth charts. So Oprah Winfrey, very, very unique individual. If we take a look at Walt Disney here, I'd like to point out the middle part of the birth chart. These blues and these reds are what are called aspects. And the reds are aspects that we were born with that are positioned to help us evolve our soul. They are the challenges in life. And the blues are the helpers, is the way to take a look at it. So just take a look at Walt Disney as a visual, and you get a sense of what he had for aspects. And then we take a look at Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey, just by a short look, shout out, she created her life in communication in a very unique way. And in her chart, I can point out what is called an air trine. Not everybody gets trines, but Oprah certainly has an air trine. So communication, very big in her life. We take a look now at the next one, Steve Jobs. So if you just look at this two of these side by side, you see two very different individuals. Your chart is as individual as theirs, is the message. There are 12 zodiac signs. They show the unique ways people grow and learn. They're not fixed labels or destinies. Now, the interesting thing about the zodiac sign is we all have a sun, and everything in our birth chart radiates around our sun. So if you have a sun that is Aries, because this is when you were born, March 21st to March 19th, you do appear and you are very much the archetype of the warrior and the initiator and the confrontive particular personality. You also have a young personality, but the zodiac sign shows the unique ways people grow and learn. They're not fixed labels or destinies. And each sign describes a style of meeting life's challenges. So you may remember that I showed that each house has a sign on its cusp. So if we're talking about the 10th house, which is the house of career, and I take a look at, well, what sign is on the cusp of that house, I'm able to understand what career would fill the sole purpose for a particular individual. Would it be a career in communication, such as Gemini? Would it be a career in acting, such as Leo? And performing, so various careers, or would it be a spiritual leader if you had Pisces on the 10th house cusp? Where would the career lie? And the signs act as symbolic guides. They help you to understand your evolving self and how you interact with the world. Here are the houses. And this is the part that confuses people a lot about astrology, but is remember the houses never move. So whatever is on the cusp of your first house, that's the energy that is resonating with how you appear in the world. 10th house, it's resonating with your career. 7th house is partnerships, marriages, and other intimate partnerships. So we take a look at the sign on the cusp, and we take a look at by birth, what planets might be positioned in those houses, and then what aspects have been formed. And then with all that information, we're able to understand the various of life and how things were set up to play out. What energies did you have? What weather might you encounter in that particular area of life? So the signs on the cusps color the house lessons. And it is in aligning the houses and the signs and the planets, knowing those and aligning those, that sets us up and empowers us for conscious, purposeful growth. The planets. I do love the planets. I love looking at the planets as actors. And so there are some planets that we always like to see, such as Jupiter. Where's Jupiter? Jupiter is where we find optimism, expansion, adventure, happiness. Jupiter is Santa Claus, is really the Jupiter energy. Pluto, the furthest out planet, Pluto is where we're going to find transformation. So Pluto is very much linked to the soul evolution. And how is the soul set up to evolve through this lifetime? Where I see Pluto natally in the birth chart helps us see that story, helps us see that part of Pluto. Uranus, where I find Uranus, whatever house I'm finding Uranus in, and whatever sign and whatever aspects, I'm able to see where does the individual seek to be unique? How were they set up to be unique? And it's very empowering to understand what your Uranus is, because very often it's your Uranus that makes people think you're a little odd or crazy, or you stand out from the crowd and you're told you should fit in and be like others. And a very wild Uranus is going to tell a different story. And it's very empowering then to hear why you are that unique. And some of us have more expansive Uranuses than others, depending on the soul's intent for the lifetime. So planets shine uniquely through the zodiac signs signature that they're found in. The planet's house placement allows us to understand the energy that's coming forward in that house in this lifetime. And it's the planets and the signs and the houses again that weave the cosmic story. Here are the aspects. Remember the blues and the reds, right? They weave their story through the planets that they connect. They reveal the dynamic story in your chart and your inner psychology, your inner chemistry. You know, Jung was a practicing astrologer. Jung knew, and he's quoted as saying, that he could tell more about an individual spending 2 hours with their birth chart than years in session. The birth chart absolutely does reveal the inner chemistry and the dynamic story of the soul for this lifetime. And the aspects are the key to understanding and loving your true self. And I say that because the oppositions bring friction and the squares bring tension. So we ask ourselves many times, why do I keep doing the same things that I'm doing? Why do I end up in a relationship with the same type of people? Why can't I land that particular job that I've been trying to land for so long? The aspects will point to the answers to those whys. And I will say, some charts, we saw Steve Jobs had a lot of reds. He had a lot of things to deal with in his lifetime. And some people don't have a lot of reds. They have a lot of blues. But that doesn't mean that they get it off easy, because they do have some reds. But if you have a lot of blues, it's sort of like you don't really want to get off of the couch. So the reds are good. And, life, the whole expanse of it, to the point where we never come back again, is all about evolving the soul. And it's through these aspects it's the birth chart that tells us how this soul is intended to evolve in this lifetime and what the soul chose to evolve through in this lifetime. So what is evolutionary astrology? Well, it answers the question, why do I have the chart I have? It aligns you with your unique role in the universe. Now, that doesn't mean that I'll be able to say you could be working for XYZ Corporation doing this particular job, but I can certainly tell you what skills are in your soul's destiny that you should be employing. And I can certainly tell you what your soul's intention is for this lifetime. And then, therefore, what is your unique role in the universe? What is that? It's interesting, Tick, you were reading my biography and you mentioned the many self-help books. Well, I've library of self-help books and always thinking the next one would be the best one, right? It would give me the answers I was seeking. Many alternative healers, right? Reiki and this and that. And, I always say it's like looking for, I want to go shopping for something, let's say shampoo, and I want the absolute best one. So throughout my life, I was always looking for answers. I wanted answers. Why do I struggle with these things? And it wasn't until I got into metaphysics, as you heard Tick say, and I got into evolutionary astrology, that I charted, and in that, this was my gift from COVID. I charted my whole life with astrology, and I was blown away at what I could see and what I learned about myself and the weather that I was dealing with. And so I can tell you, because I've seen it and I see the work with my clients, that evolutionary astrology reveals the patterns that guide your growth and transformation. Now I have a lot of astrology books because I'm really intent on doing the very best job that I can do for my clients. Evolutionary astrology illuminates the karmic patterns, the intentions that are carried across lifetimes. Those aspects linking particular planets, especially the soul level astrology planets, which I'll be talking about, tell us what the karmic patterns have been in the previous lifetimes and that are up for redress now. Evolutionary astrology embraces you to embrace the change, step fully into your highest potential. Fear is very real, and what we fear is revealed through evolutionary astrology. It doesn't make the fear go away. What I found is it helps us understand that it's there. It's there for us to get over it. It's there for us to work through it. work through it. And it helps me understand, just knowing that it's there, why certain things intimidate me and others, such as my clients. It's been very powerful work. Evolutionary astrology guides you to live with clarity and grace and cosmic responsibility. And that's the key here. Free will is very real, and we have cosmic responsibility, and we need to awaken to who we were born to be. And that is what evolutionary astrology is able to provide. I love to talk about life's predictable phases. And so there are certain planets, and so we get into astronomy now, and the planets transit the sun at various time, at various lengths. You know, they have longer transits, I'll say. So the planet Pluto, we see at the bottom of the list here, it has a 248-year transit. 248 years to go around. And by the way, in the birth chart of the United States of America, Pluto has landed in the last couple of years back into the sign that it was when our country was founded, which the sign of Aquarius is all about we the people, which were the opening lines to Declaration of Independence. So Pluto, 248 years, a little bit of US history there. Neptune, 164 years. Long time to go around. Uranus, 84 years. For those that are blessed to live to 84, we will experience a Uranian return. That's very unusual to happen, but I'm looking forward to mine. Saturn, 29 and a half years. Jupiter, 12 years. And what we're able to see is how these planets, now, this is why it's important for everybody to truly know their stars, their birth chart, because where your Jupiter is at birth, by house, by sign, and by aspect, allows us to understand every 12 years it comes around to its birth location, and it opens up a new cycle of opportunity for you. And you want to see that coming. You know, maybe you're going through a period in life where things are just not happening. And the astrologer is able to, the evolutionary astrologer is able to say to you, oh, you got a Jupiter return coming in 4 years. Let's talk about getting ready for that. And isn't that so empowering? Instead of being in a space in life where things are just not happening and I don't know why, to, well, let's look at the weather you're under right now and let's prepare for Jupiter coming, a cycle of opportunity. Saturn, I would be amazed if a lot of you weren't able to look back at your life at the age of 28, 29, 30 and see that you snapped out of it. You snapped out of it at that point. There's a level of maturation that comes with a Saturn return. And the first one is at that age area. And the next one comes 59 to 60. These are seen by some astrologers as challenging times of life. I don't see them that way. I see them as cycles of identity. We are moving into a new cycle of our identity. Very important to understand your natal Saturn and everything that's going on with it so you can understand how it's going to play out in your life. Whether you're aware of it or not, it will definitely play out. And that's another key point about astrology is it's working. It's working whether you know what it is or not. These definite cosmic energies are playing out. So Uranus is the cycle of individuality, where Saturn is identity, and Neptune is the cycle of spirituality. Now, Neptune, you'll touch upon Neptune at the age of 28 and 41, and I'm looking around the speaker here, 55 and etc., because it forms what are called squares or oppositions to its natal Neptune. So it does go around, and even that will introduce changes of life. So the age of 28 is seen as a cycle, opens a cycle of spirituality. And isn't it interesting that it comes right as Saturn comes right after that? So a lot of maturing going on at that point in time in life. And Pluto, we come across Pluto in our early 40s. So the predictable phases of life are happening for all of us. And working with your astrologer, you're able to know when they're going to come and what the weather surrounding them will be. And you're able to prepare. Life does unfold through planetary cycles. And I call these your cosmic rites of passage. And these planetary cycles weave the story of your life. They weave the ups and the downs, and they mark beginnings and endings and integrations. And it is an awareness of these phases of life that you're empowered, and you're empowered with what's happening. And so you're more empowered to make those choices. Maybe now you know why you do the same things that you do over and over again. It's that particular setup of conditions, and you're then therefore empowered to understand more about yourself, more than any self-help book is going to be able to help you understand, and more than a counselor will, although both have their place. I'm in favor of all things that take us on an inner journey of self-discovery, because the answers really are within. Nobody else has the answers. The answers are here in the heart where the spirit lives, right? And so your journey is a spiral of becoming ever unfolding, ever evolving, ever magical. Before we opened up for the audience, we were talking about, I brought up the Beatles, and how isn't life really a magical mystery ride? Magical mystery tour. We have pink trees in the spring. I mean, that's insane, right? So it is beautiful. And with evolutionary astrology, you can understand the cycles of your life. They will play out. Soul purpose and karma and free will. Astrology is the golden key. And in the ancients, it was seen as the golden key that unlocked the door to understanding the soul's true character and potential. And here, people are curious. Evolutionary astrology, your soul's evolution is written in your stars. How? These are the keys: the south node and the north node. So I'll talk about the nodes for a moment. Every planet has nodes, just like we have the Arctic and the Antarctic. So every planet has nodes, an up and a down, polarity. But it's only the moon's nodes that we work with in astrology, and particularly evolutionary astrology. And it is because the moon is the emotional energy. One thing, although people do come forward with past life recollection, the one thing that does transcend death and rebirth are the emotions. It's in the DNA. There is an emotional footprint of what you have traversed through in previous lifetimes. The South Node tells us what the past life patterns have been for you. And we can understand what the comfort zones are of that past life. And what we see in the life, and I see it in all my clients too, I saw it in myself. I repeated my South Node story. I lived in that story. Why? Because it's comfortable. It's the comfort zone of life. But we are here to transcend the South Node. Pluto, big part of the cosmic story. It's the furthest out planet. It's considered a dwarf planet. It's the tiniest thing, but it has a lot of power, and that's been proven. It's Pluto's position in your birth chart reveals your soul's deepest desires, its karmic patterns, and your evolutionary transformation of the soul. Chiron, a lot of us have heard about Chiron. Chiron is interesting. It reveals soul wounds, and those hurt. They're deep. They're not as hurtful as Pluto's when you understand those, however. And Chiron is the soul's wounds that can be healed in the lifetime and understanding them. Chiron was the wounded healer. The whole thing about Chiron is understanding what that wound is so you can heal others that have that wound. All right. And then we come to really my favorite, which is the North Node. It is the North Star. And of everything that I spoke about, I said in your birth chart, all the energies will play out, and they will. The only energy point that won't play out on its own is the North Node. It will just sit there waiting for you, because it's waiting for you to leave the South Node comfort. So the North Node is the North Star. It's where our soul wants to go in this lifetime. It's the future to be made. And it's the kind of experiences that we must work to develop to work out our karma and grow spiritually. We all feel the inner calling. We all have it. I know everybody does. And what is it that keeps us from that inner calling? It's that fear. And that fear you can understand that fear that you're dealing with in this lifetime through understanding your South Node and your Pluto, and yes, Chiron, and their positions in the birth chart and all the aspects that are there to play. So the North Node is the future to be made. And this is the key of evolutionary astrology, is we really work at it as spiritual astrology. We're looking for the spiritual evolution of the soul. And we do choose how our music plays. We do make our life. I remember my mom told me, and I'll never forget it, your life is what you make it. I thought, oh, cripes, let me get another self-help book because this is not working out, right? But it really is what we make it. And so there is such a thing as predestiny. We chose it. We chose this lifetime. We chose the moment of birth. We chose the time of birth, the moment, time, yes, the location. In fact, we chose our birth chart. We chose that for the evolution of the soul, the ultimate evolution of the soul. We did choose our predestiny because in that predestiny, we chose what country, what family, what tribe, what condition, what environment, the whole thing. We chose it all for a reason. Karma, we came in with it and we create it. And free will choices, they do create karma and predestiny. And so there is a universal law of cause and effect that precludes denial of predestiny. We see it playing out, and everything that I've said there is there. Karma, past life, current life. I always like to say, remember that unforgiven relationship or friend or anything. We'll get to do that again. Forgiveness is key. We'll get to do that again. We meet up again. And humans are the only species that have free will within the context of predestiny. I wanted to point that out. And our free will choices impact our lives, the world, and eternity. It's vibration, everybody. We're dowsers. We understand energy. We understand vibration. Astrology is vibration. Our choices create vibratory influences throughout the universe. Why know your stars? Well, it's the ancient key to know thyself. And it's amazing that we don't all know our astrology and we don't all know who we really are, our personalities. And then therefore, because we can't find it within ourselves, we're seeking outside for the answers. The key to knowing your stars, the reason to know your stars, is to know who you are, inner you, why you're here, and work within yourself to find the answers. Nobody else has the answers. And so it's our first invitation, know thyself. It opens the doors to everything.